Most men make the mistake of thinking that if they always show up, always respond, always bend for her, she will appreciate it forever. They believe that being constantly available, being emotionally reactive to her moods, and accommodating her every wave of feeling is a sign of love and strength. But this is one of the biggest mistakes a man can make, assuming he'll always be there without protecting his own energy. Women, like all human beings, are emotional creatures. Their feelings often come before facts, their impulses before reasoning, and their words before truth. The man who reacts to every emotion, who mirrors every frustration or excitement, loses himself in the process. He becomes a reflection of her chaos, rather than the anchor she truly needs. Understanding this is essential. Women are not inherently manipulative, but they are sensitive to energy. They notice who melts under pressure, who overcompensates to soothe, and who sacrifices self-respect in order to maintain connection. These patterns reveal weakness to those who are not careful. When a man assumes he will always be taken for granted, he unwittingly trains the relationship to drain him. Each time he overextends emotionally, she learns that boundaries are flexible, that availability is unlimited, and that his energy can be consumed without consequence. This does not mean women are intentionally cruel, it means they respond to patterns, just as men do. The mistake is in thinking that consistent presence without balance guarantees love, loyalty, or respect. The power of a man lies in his emotional independence. He does not react to every wave of emotion, he observes, he understands, and he responds only when it aligns with his values and boundaries. Emotional discipline is not coldness, it is the strength that makes a woman feel safe, secure, and respected. When a man maintains his center, he teaches the unspoken truth that peace is not negotiable. A woman may express frustration, disappointment, or anger, but these waves are temporary. Reacting impulsively or sacrificing your stability for them only clouds judgment and weakens attraction. A man who remains grounded, calm, and unwavering, on the other hand, becomes an anchor in the storm, someone whose presence is valued because it is earned, not assumed. Assuming he will always be there also blinds men to reality. Life is unpredictable, and circumstances change. Relationships are dynamic, and one-sided emotional investment will eventually break a man's spirit. Protecting your peace does not mean withdrawing love or compassion, it means choosing when, how, and to what degree you give yourself. It is the awareness that your energy is finite and that respect is built on self-preservation as much as it is on empathy. When a man recognizes that his unwavering presence is not owed, he gains clarity. He can love freely, support generously, and engage meaningfully without losing himself. Every man must understand that his availability is not a guarantee of connection, loyalty, or gratitude. It is a gift, and like all gifts, it carries value only when boundaries are clear and energy is respected. Assuming you will always be there without maintaining these boundaries is a mistake that leads to depletion, resentment, and loss of attraction. Protecting your peace is not selfish, it is the foundation of true strength and lasting influence. When you respect yourself first, your presence becomes powerful, meaningful, and irreplaceable. One of the most overlooked weaknesses that women display, and one that men often fail to understand, is the way they thrive on attention. Attention is their oxygen, subtle but powerful, and how a man chooses to give it determines his influence, his respect, and ultimately, his peace. Many men make the mistake of assuming that constant presence, constant acknowledgement, and constant validation are required to maintain her affection. They think that by always being available, always replying instantly, always accommodating every desire, they are proving love and commitment. But this assumption, that they must always be there, is exactly the trap that drains energy and diminishes masculine authority. A woman does not respect what she can predict or control. Her attraction, her interest, even her love, is heightened by the man who does not bend to every whim, the one who manages his focus, and the one who gives attention selectively. Men often confuse giving attention with being weak or unloving. They fear that withholding it will create distance, that it will be interpreted as indifference. Yet the truth is the opposite. Attention is a currency, and like all currencies, it has value only when it is finite, purposeful, and grounded in self-respect. Overgiving it, pouring it endlessly into every mood, every message, every subtle test, reduces it to a commodity. She learns that she can demand, provoke, and manipulate attention without consequence. That is why withdrawal, when done intentionally and calmly, becomes so powerful. It communicates boundaries, strength, and self-possession, qualities that naturally draw respect and deep attraction. Protecting your peace is not about being cold, it is about being conscious of how your presence and your energy are distributed. Attention also reveals a deeper truth: women notice effort more than intention. They feel the energy behind your actions, not just the actions themselves. When a man assumes he will always be there, he underestimates how much of his energy is being consumed without reciprocation. He fails to see that constant availability leads to complacency, both in her and in himself. Instead of creating a dynamic of mutual value, he unintentionally creates dependency, hers on his attention, and his on her validation. True masculine power comes from breaking that cycle. It comes from knowing when to engage fully, when to step back, and when to invest in himself rather than in seeking her approval. Moreover, understanding attention as a weakness helps men avoid unnecessary conflict and emotional exhaustion. Women test this unconsciously, often not out of manipulation, but out of habit or curiosity. They will push for reactions, seek reassurance, and measure responses. The man who assumes he must always be available reacts, bends, or explains. The man who understands the value of selective attention responds with calm, with boundaries, and with strategic engagement. This teaches her that respect is not given freely, but earned and maintained. Ultimately, assuming he will always be there without controlling where his focus and energy go is a mistake that leads to imbalance, emotional drain, and loss of self-respect. Protecting your peace means realizing that attention is not a limitless resource, and that your time, your energy, and your presence are valuable. When you give them consciously, selectively, and with intention, you not only preserve your strength, but you also become magnetic, reliable, and truly irreplaceable. Many men fall into the trap of believing that empathy requires surrender. They think that understanding a woman's emotional needs means agreeing with every word, validating every feeling, and bending to her expectations. This is a critical mistake. Assuming he must always be there emotionally without boundaries not only drains a man but also diminishes his influence. Women are emotional beings, yes, but they are also highly perceptive. They notice patterns of reaction, subtle shifts in energy, and the way a man handles stress, disappointment, or confrontation. When a man consistently sacrifices his emotional equilibrium to meet her needs, he signals that his peace is negotiable, that his strength is flexible, and that his attention is unlimited. This is where the danger lies. Emotional validation, when given without discernment, becomes a tool she can unconsciously use to control or test him. Understanding this does not mean a man should become cold or detached. Compassion and empathy are not weaknesses, they are strengths, but only when balanced with self-respect and discernment. A man who responds to every wave of emotion loses perspective. He reacts instead of observing, mirrors instead of leading, and sacrifices his calm for temporary approval. Women may not consciously intend to exploit this, but patterns emerge. Their emotions are naturally fluid, and when met with unchecked availability, they can inadvertently shape a man's behavior to match the highs and lows of their moods. The man who assumes he will always be there without protecting his energy becomes predictable, reactive, and ultimately less attractive. Boundaries are essential. Listening with attention does not mean sacrificing your truth. Supporting her does not mean compromising your peace. A man who respects his own limits communicates an unspoken but powerful message. He is reliable, but he is not manipulable. He is present, but not captive to emotional turbulence. Women, like all people, respond to energy, and a stable, grounded man becomes an anchor in the midst of emotional storms. By maintaining his equilibrium, he naturally encourages respect and creates an environment where meaningful connection is possible, rather than endless dependency or chaos. Assuming that constant presence will earn love or loyalty ignores reality. Relationships are dynamic, and no amount of emotional availability can substitute for strength, clarity, and discernment. Men often mistake the temporary comfort of reacting immediately with long-term influence. True influence comes from measured responses, emotional independence, and the ability to stay centered while understanding another's perspective. By choosing when and how to engage, a man preserves his energy, maintains attraction, and protects his peace, all without diminishing compassion or empathy. Furthermore, recognizing that emotional validation can be a weakness allows men to avoid unnecessary conflict and emotional fatigue. Women will test, consciously or unconsciously, to see how much they can push. This is not malicious, it is part of human nature, part of the way energy dynamics operate in relationships. The man who assumes he must always be there reacts, bends, or over-explains. The man who understands the strategic balance between empathy and self-preservation engages calmly, responds selectively, and communicates without compromising himself. Ultimately, assuming he will always be there emotionally without boundaries is a mistake that leads to depletion and loss of influence. Protecting your peace requires understanding that empathy is not surrender, that validation is not obligation, and that a man's value is amplified when he maintains his truth while offering measured support. Your presence is powerful only when it is conscious, deliberate, and grounded in self-respect. Distance is one of the most underestimated tools in a man's arsenal. Many men think that constant presence, constant communication, and constant attention will build love and respect. They believe that the more they are there, the more she will value them. But the truth is the opposite. Absence creates desire, space creates reflection, and when you step back, you allow her to see what she has been taking for granted. Until you create that distance, until you let your silence do the talking, she will continue to operate from the comfort of your availability, never fully appreciating the man she has. Distance is not a punishment. It is not a game. It is not about making her jealous or manipulating her emotions. It is about giving her the space to reflect on her own behavior and on your worth. When you stop being the man who reacts instantly to her moods, the man who is always available to soothe, explain, or chase, she begins to experience the absence of control. She begins to recognize that your attention is not infinite, that your patience is not a given, and that your presence is not something she can take lightly. That absence, more than any words, communicates your value. A woman's ego often thrives on testing boundaries. She will push, provoke, and take advantage of a man's predictability. If you never step back, if you never allow yourself to be unavailable for a moment, she will never learn. She will never feel the weight of losing your energy or attention. She will never understand that respect and admiration are not automatic, they are earned through your consistency, your self-respect, and your unwillingness to be controlled. Distance teaches lessons that confrontation cannot. Silence shows strength in a way that words never can. But pulling back requires discipline. It requires patience and emotional control. Many men fear absence because they worry it will push her away, or because they mistake distance for rejection. The truth is, distance only pushes away what was never meant to stay. The women who truly value you will feel your absence, reflect on their behavior, and respond with respect. They will recognize your calm, self-contained strength, and they will adjust their actions to meet you on equal ground. The lessons learned in silence and space are far more powerful than any argument, any explanation, or any desperate attempt to prove worth. Distance also protects your peace. When you step back, you reclaim control over your own emotions, your own time, and your own energy. You stop feeding her ego with constant reactions, and in doing so, you create a space for clarity, both for her and for you. You begin to see the truth of the relationship, whether she respects and values you, or whether she has been taking you for granted all along. This is a crucial step in understanding that love cannot coexist with entitlement. When a man learns to use distance strategically, when he understands that his absence can teach more than his presence ever could, the dynamic changes entirely. She begins to see you not as someone who exists solely for her comfort, but as a man whose presence is deliberate, whose attention is precious, and whose respect cannot be taken lightly. That realization is the turning point, the moment where appreciation begins, where boundaries are acknowledged, and where true respect can grow. Sometimes walking away does not mean leaving forever. Sometimes it simply means stepping back enough for her to feel the value of what she already has. And when she does, everything shifts. The peace you protect, the space you hold, and the quiet strength you embody become the most persuasive forces in the relationship. Once you stop feeding her ego, once you establish your boundaries and protect your peace, you will notice the tests begin. Women often challenge a man's calm, his independence, and his refusal to be controlled. She will provoke, she will manipulate, and she may even try to make you jealous. These are not signs of weakness on your part or of malice on hers, they are simply tests of your consistency, your self-respect, and your emotional strength. How you respond to these tests is what defines your value in her eyes. Many men fall into the trap of reacting. They feel the pull to defend themselves, to explain, to chase, or to prove that they are worthy of her attention. But every reaction is a deposit into her ego. Every defensive argument, every over-explained message, every desperate attempt to prove love tells her that she still controls the dynamic. True power lies in restraint. True respect comes when you remain unshaken, when you hold your peace and refuse to react out of fear or insecurity. When she tests you, it is not about winning an argument or proving dominance. It is about her ego seeing whether you can withstand pressure, whether your value is defined by her reactions, or by your own standards. A man who remains grounded under her provocations demonstrates something far more attractive than charm or attention. He demonstrates stability, strength, and unwavering self-respect. And those are qualities that cannot be faked or demanded. They are earned through consistent action and deliberate calm. Tests are inevitable. She may attempt to provoke jealousy, to question your loyalty, or to push you to abandon your boundaries. These are moments when many men falter, when they momentarily prioritize approval over peace. But the man who understands his own worth does not fall for these tactics. He responds with patience, he holds his space, and he allows silence and calmness to do the work words cannot. His energy remains intact, his peace remains intact, and in that consistency, she begins to recognize the true depth of his character, a depth that cannot be shaken by gains or ego challenges. The irony is that her challenges, her tests, are exactly what create deeper respect and attraction when handled correctly. If you react impulsively, she gains temporary control, and her ego swells. But if you remain composed, if you refuse to let her control your emotions, the dynamic shifts. She realizes that you are not someone to be toyed with, that your attention is valuable, and that your love is not conditional on her behavior. This realization forces reflection, and reflection leads to appreciation. A man who stands firm, who does not bend under pressure, and who protects his peace teaches more through silence than most men ever teach through words. He does not need to argue, beg, or explain. He embodies calm authority, and in that embodiment, the lessons are learned naturally. She begins to respect him not because of fear, but because she sees the unshakable foundation of his self-worth. She begins to understand that if she wishes to maintain the connection, she must honor the boundaries he has set and meet him on equal ground. Ultimately, these tests are opportunities. They are moments where the man proves to himself and to her that he values his peace above momentary approval. They reveal character, maturity, and strength. And the man who consistently remains unshaken under these pressures becomes unforgettable, not through words, but through the quiet, unwavering demonstration of his value. At the core of everything we've discussed lies one undeniable truth: your peace is your power. Too many men allow their attention, their emotions, and their energy to be dictated by someone else's ego. They bend, they chase, they explain, and in doing so, they compromise the very thing that defines their worth. Protecting your peace is not selfish. It is not arrogance. It is a recognition that your value is non-negotiable, and that true respect, love, and connection can only flourish when your inner stability is intact. Many men fear that prioritizing their own peace will push her away. They worry that setting boundaries, stepping back, or refusing to over-accommodate will result in rejection. But the truth is, those who respect and value you will respond to clarity with appreciation. They will rise to meet your boundaries rather than attempting to dismantle them. And those who cannot will reveal themselves for who they truly are, allowing you to redirect your energy toward people and relationships that honor your worth. Protecting your peace filters out distractions, entitlement, and energy drains, leaving space for respect, alignment, and genuine connection. Protecting your peace is also a matter of self-respect. It is about refusing to allow anyone to define your value through manipulation, drama, or control. It is about embodying the understanding that your presence, your time, and your energy are precious. When a woman sees that you are unshaken, that you are not driven by her reactions, she begins to understand the depth of your worth. She begins to see that love is not about constant approval, but about mutual respect, shared boundaries, and recognition of true value. Your peace becomes a silent teacher, showing her what she must do to honor you. A man who protects his peace demonstrates strength without aggression. He teaches lessons without confrontation. He shows, through consistent calm and unwavering self-respect, that his worth cannot be bargained for or taken lightly. In relationships, this is transformative. Women may initially resist or test these boundaries, but the ones who are capable of real love will respect them, adjust their behavior, and meet him on equal ground. Those who cannot are revealed early, saving time, energy, and emotional investment. The irony is that protecting your peace often leads to deeper connection, not distance. By maintaining boundaries, by refusing to overreact, and by valuing your own energy above temporary approval, you create a magnetic dynamic. Respect grows, attraction intensifies, appreciation emerges naturally. It is a subtle but undeniable shift, one that cannot be forced or faked. Your peace becomes the standard, and anyone who wishes to remain in your life must honor it. Protecting your peace also liberates you from the illusion of control. You no longer need to manipulate, chase, or argue for respect. You no longer need to compromise yourself to be valued. Instead, you focus on your own growth, your own purpose, and your own happiness. And in doing so, you naturally attract people, not because you are desperate for approval, but because you embody a rare combination of calm confidence, self-respect, and unwavering presence. At the end of the day, breaking her ego, maintaining your boundaries, and refusing to over-accommodate are not acts of cruelty. They are acts of clarity. They protect your energy, preserve your peace, and reveal your true worth. When you choose peace over approval, silence over reaction, and self-respect over overgiving, you step into the strongest version of yourself. And that is when real love, respect, and value can truly emerge.